when I have spoken to people, I've always typically when you go to talk to people who are not people of science or have forgotten science or don't remember science so much, typically at home, if you go and ask them what is there in this glass, they would say it's water. You ask them, is it something which is very useful to you? Oh, they say very useful. If you ask them why is it useful, oh, they say no, we drink, we wash. Without that, we couldn't live. And that's what they would say, and very rightly so. Take this to a chemist who is operating using sodium in his plant. You ask him what this is, he looks at the same water with a lot more aspects than what the person at home said. He would look at it as something which is a very reactive chemical. And he brings in his element of knowledge and skills and all that when he deals with this water. And here, when we talk of human factors, a combination of human factors that we all have built up over many, many years. And what we bring to our combined community that we are part of is what we would call culture. And that's, put it simply, is what we do when no one is watching. For example, some of us would have gone abroad, some of the places, and I can recall an instance when 2 o'clock in Milan, Italy, I was coming back to the airport. The roads were absolutely empty, kilometers of straight stretch on either side without any vehicle in sight. The light turned red and the taxi driver stopped. This again was about 25 years back. To me, that was something which went so deep into my mind that I asked him, I said, why did you stop? We didn't have any vehicles around. He simply said, no, the light went red. So that is when I started realizing the value of this word culture. The culture was that if there was a red light, we stopped. And when it became green, we moved on. Some years later, when I went to Japan, I found I was walking around in a village area, what they called a village, and found an unbelievably sort of clean roads. Roads were absolutely clean. My friends, something that we don't normally get to see in our parts. So the Japanese host who was with me, I asked the person, I asked him in English. They knew a little bit of English, smattering of English. And when we look at clean roads, typically we think that a large vehicle is going to come, it's going to collect the garbage, take it away, take it someplace else, and keep the road clean, which is what many of us are familiar with. So I asked him, when does the vehicle come to clean these roads? He looked at me blank and didn't respond. So I thought I was probably speaking English too fast. So I asked in slower English language, when does it come to clean? He again looked at me blank and didn't seem to understand what I was asking. And then I realized that there was something more serious about this gap in communication, what I was wanting to convey. And then I pointed at the road and said, road, how so clean? And you know what he said? He said, nobody make dirty. And that hit me like a brick. If nobody is going to make the road dirty, then there is absolutely no need for somebody else to come behind and do the cleanup. My friends, this is what culture is all about. And why I say this is because even when we handle all these natural resources we have, today we speak about water, I think we must get into a culture which is going to take us back towards how nature designed the earth for us. How nature said, take what you want, leave behind the rest with me. And she said, I will give it to you when you want it. And this reminds me of what I told at a gathering of school children. In fact, it was again many years back, 20 years back or so, even more than that. When I was speaking about water to them, school children, young school children, and I asked them some of these questions about water to make them think about it. And I said, when you drink water, what happens to your stomach? And then they said, it goes into the stomach. And I said, you drink more water happens. Then they said the stomach becomes big and we tend to look a bit fat. And then I asked them, in the rainy season, you find these trees always in the ground. Do you think they drink water? They said, yeah, they need water because they take it from roots. That much they knew and said. So when there is so much of water, why don't the trees become fat? Because they have all the water, they drink a lot of water. The children started thinking and actually they were stuck. And then I told them, my young friends, it's because nature has told them, take only what you want. Nature has designed the tree's systems to take only what the tree wants and leave behind the rest with me. Whenever you want it, I will make your roots grow longer. Take it from where I am, have it. And I will give it to you, but just take what you want. And that becomes one of the essential aspects of how we must learn to live our lives, whether in industry or at home. And I said right in the beginning, we must learn to keep it going in a circle, which means it keeps going round and round. And for that, we must spend on design. And in this design, we must have mechanisms to say, take what you want and leave behind the rest. Our own kidneys also work that way. But that's how I think we must all be doing things when we go ahead. Coming to this now, when we speak about incidents and let's say environmental mishaps and things like that, one of the things that happens most is ignorance. When somebody doesn't know about something, naturally the actions also are less out of knowledge and there can be mishaps. That's what happens. So there is one I which comes there. And then we come to indiscretion, which means I know, but occasionally we get into acts of indiscretion. We know that we shouldn't be wasting water, but sometimes we feel like, well, with it, yeah, let's have a drink, let's say have a bath for a longer time and things like that. So it's not ignorance, but it's indiscretion. And then you have something called indifference, where I don't care. Typically, this happens when somebody is having a problem of plenty, when everything is available in so much abundance that they haven't even thought about it. So it's a combination of a bit of ignorance, a bit of indiscretion. But indiscretion is when you go over the bar sometimes. Indifference is where I don't care because I don't think it matters. I am going to make any difference to it or I should contribute towards this. And in all this, it's I, the individual, who matters, which means each and every one of us. If there are going to be 8 billion people in the world, every individual, if every individual were to work on areas of ignorance, areas of indiscretion, and areas of indifference, the world would be a much better place, especially from handling a resource like water. Quite so often, till about 15, 20 years back, we would have one saying, he spends money like water. All of us across the country or maybe probably across the world, because everybody thought water was in plenty, so it could be spent in plenty. And when somebody is found to be spending money without, being very conscious, we would say he's spending money like water. But that actually has turned around, and that statement you hardly get to hear nowadays because people all realize that water is as scarce or more scarce than money itself. So ignorance, indiscretion, and indifference, and I, the individual. It's not all of us, many of us, and all that. It must start with I, the individual, and that is me. I must make sure that I work on these three areas to make things better.